Good morning, everyone, and a warm welcome to the Gender Equality in the Blue Economy, an event hosted by Nordregio, the Nordic Council of Ministers, and Pro Tromsø. The Nordics are a true force in the Arctic. We have competence, we have people, we have democratic values, and we focus a lot of equality. And this will be the topic for today's event, Equality in the Blue Economy. I'm very pleased to invite to the floor the Secretary General of the Nordic Council of Ministers, Karen Ellemann, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And good morning to all of you. I know there's a lot of people in line waiting to get rid of their huge winter coats. And to those of you following online, I hope you're warm and comfortable. Anyway, from my side as well, a warm welcome to this Nordic side event on gender equality in the blue economy. It's really a great pleasure to open this event and share just a few welcoming words before we will actually dive into the program that we are all excited about. You probably know that all the Nordic ministers jointly adapted a vision to make the Nordic region the most sustainable and integrated region in the world by 2030. And this is a bold ambition that demonstrates a commitment to our Nordic region. But reaching this goal requires concerted efforts. And this also means a continuous focus on gender equality and the equal rights of women and men, also in the blue economy. We need to harness the full potential and talent of the entire population, no matter what diversity, to achieve a sustainable and inclusive development. For nearly 50 years, the Nordic Council of Ministers has worked to promote gender equality. The Nordic region, yes, we've come a long way on many of these issues like shared parental leave, childcare, flexible working hours, women in leadership position, equal pay. So good and very important achievements that a lot of people in other countries look at us and somehow get inspired, I hope, sometimes even envy us, and that's good. But however, I need to be honest and say that our region still has much to do before all women and men, girls and boys, have the same influence and the same opportunities. And one pressing challenge we share is gender segregation in education and the labor market. And this is evident in many sectors, including in fisheries and aquaculture. Women are significantly underrepresented in the blue economy, and we will hear a lot more about the state of play in just a minute. And I just have to say this underrepresentation of women is a problem for several reasons. We need women in these sectors because gender equality will boost sustainability. We know that when women are involved in natural resource management, there are significant benefits to environmental sustainability. At a time of multiple nature crisis, we need the contribution of all of our best resources, which of course obviously also include women in these sectors. Women are often underrepresented in leadership positions in the blue economy, and it is essential to promote gender diversity at all levels of the industry, including leadership roles. It is also a matter of regional development and creating attractive jobs and vibrant coastal communities, not least in the Arctic. So finally, also, we need to recognize that the important role that women plays in terms of research, development, and entrepreneurship in the blue sector. So I look so much forward hearing more about the results from this important project, and I really hope that today's discussions will provide new ideas for gender equality in the ocean economy. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Secretary General Ellemann. You spoke about the values and the strength of female workforce and that we are sometimes underrepresented in important industries, such as the fishing industry. Therefore, we need strong role models who can speak up when things are not right. One of them we are going to hear from now, a very strong and brave woman who has spoken up and spurred a debate on how we should work to improve the work environment for female fishers. Susanne Mortensen, please, we look forward to hearing your story.
Hello, my name is Susanne Mortensen. I am 26 years old, okay, and grew up in Tromsø. For a long time, I was also a fisherman, or a fisherwoman, before my life changed overnight. I published a chronicle in 2021. The name of the article was Wrong Gender on Board. It started a nationwide debate on equality and how it is for women in the fishing industry. Today, I want to speak to you all about the reason for my article and the reaction that came after. I came from a family where both of my parents have worked at sea. I remember being interested in marine life forms and the sea, even as a child. At sea, you never know what comes next. As a fisherman, the work is hard, but it's also an adventure. Every time. As a bonus, you get to escape the city life, and you have a lot of free time when you get back home. At first, I loved my job. I was proud of what I did. Maybe that was a mistake. The middle leader of the ship was often angry. Even more so when tired or hungry. At the time, I was the green horn, and in training. In other words, I was the smallest fish in the pond. He would often pick me for small mistakes. I didn't know wrong from right, but I would sometimes stand up for myself. This made him even more angry. "You whiny count," he said. He later said he was sorry and informed me that talking like he did was just a part of the culture on board. The situation was complicated. My belly was the middle leader. I was in training and had no status. I decided to go to the ship's captain. Speaking to the ship's captain was only an echo. Again, I was told that I was wrong. I was wrong because I spoke back at him, and his reaction was natural and expected. Reading between the lines, I was told to keep quiet, not talk back, and do what they say to tell me to do. My side of the story was not important, so I kept on fighting. My next step was to contact the shipping company. I was giving the same message. If you just behave, you can avoid problem like this. The harassment will only get worse from here on. I remember entering the canteen after a long night shift. The big boys club was all present, including the main leader and the man I had a conflict with. All of a sudden, someone from my crew spoke at me. He wanted to know if I was on my period, since I was so hypersensitive about funny jokes. I laughed, but I was all right, another one said. If I felt sad, Thomas could comfort me. He will be at cabin 646 at midnight, if it only had to stop it with the jokes. I have been sexually assaulted and touched against my will many times and over time. I have been called a whore and I can't. I was treated accordingly. One coworker will use every opportunity to degrade me. and make me break into tears. I remember he would say, "Do you really think you deserve your payment?" After being treated like you don't for a long time, you start to ask yourself the same question. Being put to work, to do work I was not qualified to do, was also part of the culture. This way could show me how useless I am. No matter what I did or said, I never was good enough. I was a burden. The message was clear. Being a woman meant I could never be equal, even if worked twice as hard. Also, being called a whore is just a part of the culture on the ship. Maybe hurting the most was the fact that my other colleagues would be bystanders. Yes, we had rotten apples on board, but I also had friends there. They all stayed quiet, and I felt helpless, frozen out and excluded, unwanted. Unless someone needed a boxing bag to get out their frustration, it comes to a point where you give in and question if you really are useless in this line of work simply because you are a woman. They say culture is invisible and only come forward when it meets another culture, a contrast. In my story, I kind of feel the same way. It was not before I opened up about my situation to do something outside work that I really could see it. And the tide would change. I sat down and started writing. I was very satisfying to get it all down on paper, like therapy. Overnight, the national media picked up the case. They were given a window into the hull of the ship. Information firsthand by a woman fisherman in an industry dominated by men. I'd like to point out that this is not just an industry, by one of Norway's oldest and proudest. The reaction of my article was massive. Thousands of comments popped up online on different platforms. Some gave support, but mostly I was met with more hate. Not by the everyday man or woman, but by other fishermen and women in the industry. In short, Me Too was liberal nonsense. Don't be so sensitive. I was not a victim, I was the offender. I was ruining their good reputation. Some said they had never seen harassment of women at sea. In Norway, there was only 3.7% of women fishers, so how big could the problem really be? I was told that my rebellion would only scare women away from the industry, that it was harmful to speak up on the matter like I did. Well, I think they managed to scare off women well enough on their own. In the comment section, there was one echo. I should be ashamed of myself. I should stop and think about their feelings, not validate my own. I haven't read much psychology, but this sounds like projection and denial. I was told that there was a good reason why women were not represented in Norway's biggest fishermen's organization. Women are not interested in doing the real work and focus only on having children. Having children is bad business. Again, you see the victim blaming and old harmful beliefs about women's roles in society. Women have tried to gain equal access to the industry since the 1970s. However, law and regulation from this time period effectively excluded women. Why? Due to have children. Bad culture is still present. But rules about women has changed. You may now become a mother without risking your salary. There is also development to improve the services used for reporting on discrimination and harassment at work. In sum, I managed to spark a debate that can lead to reform, being said, bad culture and attitudes towards women have formed over generation, and the process of changing will be gradual one. I hope, however, that my work can be a lighthouse, a signal that can serve to guide other ships away from the same fight. If you cannot bring rotten fish to the market and say it's culture and support is supposed to be this way, my time as a fisherman is over, and I will never return. Even the idea of going back makes me seasick. But I made it through the storm, and hopefully my work can make a change for the next generation of women to come. Personally, I will continue my new life. I am now the proud mother of a cute little girl, Sansa. I study law, and I'm to use it as an instrument to influence what's important to me. I also work 2 jobs, and I have not been called a whiny kind by the bosses yet. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Susanna, for sharing your strong and quite sad story. And thank you for being so brave on behalf of women in the fishing sector. And we hope that you, in your new career, can help us improve things. Dear friends, in order to fight these problems that Susanna explained to us, sharing her own story, we need knowledge. And we need to find ways how to involve women more, because we need the force of the women in innovation and to have new ideas and to develop and also to recruit other women. And I'm very pleased to introduce the next speaker, Anna Karlsdottir from Norregio and the University of Iceland. Anna has also been sharing a very important project called Ensuring Gender Equality in Nordic Blue Economy. Please, Anna.
Thank you, Jorel. I'm so pleased to see you here. The weather has not been ideal for flights, so I'm very, very happy to see you all here because, as Jorel mentioned, we've been working hard to get our new publication out, ensuring gender equality and Nordic in Nordic Blue Economy. Do I just use this for the slides? Thank you. So let me tell you a little bit about this report and this work that has been ongoing since 2021. I'm very glad that you managed to be with us, Susanne, because as is evident from the report, this work was actually spurred by Susanne's chronicle. And the project name, Lax and Likestilling, I like it. It's really catchy, Salmon and Equality. This was launched by the Norwegian chairmanship of the Nordic Council of Ministers. And I would like to use the opportunity here to thank especially our steering group in this project, Marianne Berger Marjanovic, who is with us here, and Katrine Wilhelm Poulsen, that is also with us here. And then we have in Oslo, Maja-Lise Oppdal, who did not make it with the flight, Kristín Þóra Harðardóttir in Iceland, and Rökkvi Reinert in Faroe Islands. So thank you all for supporting us all through this way. But the project was managed by Nordregio, and in the meantime I ended my contract with Nordregio and moved to University of Iceland. So University of Iceland has also the honor to be named here because I've used some of my working time from the university to devoted to this project. Now the focus in this work is this gender imbalance in the Nordic fisheries and aquaculture sectors, as Karin mentioned. the aim here was to build a knowledge base on equality matters, raise awareness for gender balance, and develop policy recommendations to increase women's recruitment in the sector. And also a substantial part of this work was to plow through all available statistical data across the Nordics. Now, our primary focus is the gender perspective, and we stress that the notion of gender, women, or equality, with very few exceptions, is almost completely absent from all the literature that we plowed through related to this new concept, blue economy. And this needs to be fixed. Because this lack of prioritizing gender equality in the fishing industry is a challenge, not only for women, but also for securing local communities along the coast. And so empowering women in the maritime sector goes just beyond employment. It's about creating equitable opportunities also for leadership and decision making. Now, if we go through the data, it's very interesting. Data, I would say, reveals the gender segregated labor market when we look at the results. But in a number of the kind of fields we were meant to explore statistically, the problem is that there is a sporadic data, which does affect the comparability across the Nordics. In general, women represent 6 to 20% of the manpower when we look at it in the Nordic fishing and aquaculture as of 2020. I will show you maps that we also have in the report a little bit later. And the highest gender ratio or women presented in the blue economy as of the statistics is in the fish processing, and this is historical. But when we look at the ratio of women in decision-making position, we see a rather low ratio. And this is maybe not so surprising if we draw it to the general picture of leadership in big companies. And it seems like the prevalence of women in middle-sized and smaller companies may be more prominent. But we unfortunately do not have statistics about that. We only have statistics from the largest companies because they are they have a different requirement of publishing their data. So we have high number of women in the fish processing. They have been on the decline though. We have a very low ratio of women active as fishers. But there are seeds that we see in the statistics that may be an indication of this is to be changing, and I will go back to that a little bit later. Now, I'm gonna jump to the maps that we managed to produce in spite of all odds. These two maps show share of women employed both in fishing and aquaculture. The one on the left is from 2010, the status 2010, and the one on the right is from 2020. And on the left, we can see that the highest share in 2010, 60 to 20% of women was present in Greenland, Faroe Island, and Finland fishing and aquaculture industries. And in 2020, the highest share of women present in fisheries and aquaculture is still in Greenland and Faroe Islands, little less in Finland, 11 to 15%, 8%, and in Denmark, Iceland, and Sweden, 6 to 10%, lowest in Norway, 4 to 5%. And then if we look at what happens over a decade, the highest increase of women's share happened in Faroe Islands in this period, plus 5 to 6%. And in Denmark, a little bit less, 3 to 4%, and much less in other Nordic countries. Now, we've heard Susanne speak about the masculinity culture and harassment on board a fishery boat. And I think historically the culture of masculinity, we describe it in a specific chapter in the report. It's replete with sarcasm, sexist attitudes towards women. And some may interpret this as it's a dark humor. But it's rough. And this competitive atmosphere on board some vessels has historically generally been, in some cases, perceived as charming. And, charming to some. And women on ships often face negative attitudes, and we have, through literature that we plowed through, seen that in some cases they need to adopt. I'm on a wrong slide here. I will jump back to the other in a minute. Yes, we've seen through the literature that women need to adopt strategies to cope with and avoid confrontation by adapting to masculine behavior or appearance. And if they feel that's fine, then okay, that's fine. But in some cases, that's not fine. And we also have results from a large international survey that included Denmark, Norway, Sweden, and Finland, where this was studied, bullying and harassment in the maritime sector. And it shows that workplace bullying and harassment is a substantial problem in the maritime industry. So, more research in this field is needed, and it's needed with a qualitative approach where women and maybe men also are interviewed. And I go back to the aquaculture. I simply ran over one slide. So aquaculture is also what we have looked at, and we can also see that this is a gender segregated labor market. But we see a little bit different picture emerge here in terms of the mentality to women, and especially in terms of the leadership. We see initiatives like We Are Aquaculture, where women leadership is promoted. And we see also individual companies' aspiration and work for equality. So I think that even if we see a low ratio in general, we also see some examples of equality in leadership in aquaculture, which is a little bit different to the more conventional fishery or seafood sector. That's promising, isn't it? Now, when it comes to education, we've known for quite a while that women outnumber men in educational merits, but when it comes to marine-related vocational and secondary education, the ratio of women in general over the line is low. And in some cases, like in Denmark and Finland, we see also high dropout rates. This means that there's a lot of women that start, but they don't necessarily graduate. And why is that, Susanne? Do you know? And then in general, the reproduction of in the sector is a major challenge all over, which means access, or young people's access to the sector due to structural conditions, and maybe also cultural conditions, especially in the fisheries, is everywhere a challenge. And And then when it comes to licenses and quota holdings and owning a boat, women are a big minority. And also what we've also learned from other studies is that women in general that become fishers and own a boat and get licenses, they have shorter careers. Why is that? We need to widen that. But when it comes to university education, the tertiary education, as we say formally, I think we have actually too sporadic data to really have some or draw some major conclusions. It becomes a little bit of a qualitative guesswork where we have a lot of like anecdotal examples. It's hard to figure out what university programs generate labor into the field of maritime sectors. So, but we can see that there are less women in more technical fishery-related educations, more women in fields like maritime biology or interdisciplinary educations like coastal and marine management. So let's take a look at these two maps. One on the left shows share of women enrolled in vocational and tertiary education in fishery and maritime studies in 2012, and the right, the same, but in 2020. And there are two countries that stand out here in 2012, Faroe Islands and Sweden, with the highest share of women enrolled in education in this sector. And in 2020, Iceland and Sweden have highest share of women, with Greenland following promptly. And when we look at the change over a decade, we see that there have been some changes over a little less than a decade. Shows increase by 11 to 13% in Iceland and 6 to 10% in Denmark, Greenland and Sweden. Now, let's go over to my last slide before we have the panel. It's about leadership and innovation. That was also part of our study. It was part of our study to try to explore where are women present in the top of the hierarchy, so to speak. And decision-making in industries that depend on natural resources usually happens in companies where men are the majority, even though more women are now participating in marine research and innovation. And I would like to say here that unfortunately, we don't have, we have statistics on managing directors and presence in boards. But we also see that there are numerous women present across different functions, especially due to merits of their education. We see them extremely active in research and development. And if you go to conferences like EU Blue Mission, I mean, the majority of women who are involved in circular activities and innovations of all kinds related to the blue economy, they are numerous. We also know that historically that women have for long almost been majority among marine biologists, not only in the Nordic region, but also worldwide. So women with their education and skills, they are and might be leading new ocean-related innovations. But we need statistics on it. And but we also see a pattern that women are generally less often in roles with financial control. They are very often in position of human resource management, communication, outreach. So they maybe not have the power of agenda, but they're definitely somewhere around where decisions are made in the sector. But we need to study this further. And by that, I thank you and look forward to hear what you have to say.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anna, for that broad presentation of the knowledge. And the topic of this year's Arctic Frontiers is action, reaction. So we have to take action and react well to the challenges. I'm happy to introduce today's first panel. Sandra Maja Wess, political advisor of the salmon policy at the Sami Parliament, please. Gåsa Smiser-Rice, a researcher at the UiT, the Arctic University of Norway, project coordinator of the Arctic Resilience Accelerator and co-founder of the non-profit Women of the Arctic, and Edgar Henriksen, retired senior researcher at the Norwegian Institute of Food, Fisheries and Aquaculture and co-writer of the report. So, dear friends, we have had some quite worrying presentations. If I start with you, Gåsa, what are your initial thoughts on Susanna's keynote speech and on the knowledge that we have had presented by Anna?
Does this work?
Hello? Yes. All right. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. It is a great pleasure to be a part of this discussion. Apologies right up front for my voice. It's not a regular thing. I guess I would like to begin with thanks to Susanna for not only for your speech this morning, but for your action and for speaking out, because that required surely so much courage. And I think the response you received is the best sign for how much still we need to go in the field. So thank you very much for this. Thank you also, Diana, for presentation and for work on the report. And it's great to start seeing this knowledge gap being filled. At the same time, I would like to say that I'm surprised by the findings, and I'm not. And I'm actually not. Because one of the things is I actually, I'll just pick on, that's actually really not in the order of I was thinking to address, but what you were saying about how sporadic data we have on the sector. And I think that's actually, that's one of the things that we've seen. So previously, my focus is actually more on circumpolar Arctic. So I should explain this right up front. I don't work specifically on Nordic issues per se, but I really take wider Arctic perspectives. And in the previous project where we actually, where I had the pleasure to collaborate with Anna, that was within the Arctic Council Gender Equality in the Arctic project. And the report, which was then spearheaded once again by Iceland during Iceland chairmanship of the Arctic Council, there was a work done on gender and environment where we were looking at cases of gender-sensitive approaches to different environmental issues, but also, of course, to sectors, to industry sectors based on natural resources. And it is this lack of knowledge, sporadic data, has been prevalent wherever we looked. Basically, how we decided to do this study was to have case studies from different countries, just more as illustration, what Anna was saying. It is oftentimes anecdotal what we have. The patterns we see are consistent, but it is nonetheless, it is not a solid knowledge basis that we should be having, that we should be using for the action. So that's one point here. And maybe to kind of to put one point here that maybe we can further discuss. At the same time, I think we are starting to see certain developments in this field. And here I would like to actually highlight one thing that hopefully can produce really good results over time. And this is actually requirement in Horizon Europe calls, specifically gender requirements related to research content of the project. So of course, I'm sure many of you know or maybe work on Horizon Europe projects and so on. Now, for the first time in the EU, what we see is that EU is asking that gender-sensitive approaches, that gender issues need to be addressed in the content of the project. It is different because what we've seen before was the composition of the teams working on the project. And then that, of course, in itself was important, but we were still not really getting deeper into understanding of how gendered issues work on the surface. So I think we are making some steps in the right direction. And maybe I'll start with this and we can continue.
Thank you so much, Gosia. Sandra, you are a Sami. You are a very well-known figure in the Norwegian Arctic and also in other countries because you have a strong voice also. Like Susanna, you have worked with culture, and the Sami is a very present thing in the Norwegian Arctic, and you are a sea Sami, and like myself. Many people associate Samis with reindeers and living on the tundra, but actually a big part of the Sami culture is also connected to the sea. Please, what would you like to share your thoughts on what we've heard today?
Ologito Göril, thank you so much. Yes, I'm very proud to be Coastal Sami, and you know, fisheries has been a very important for our culture and still is. I think this report is very interesting. It's important for, you know, if you want politicians to do stuff, we need to have numbers so that we understand that it's a problem. It sounds banal, but that's the case. So I'm very happy that we have this report, and even though we see that there is some data missing, it's good to have this in the report so that we can actually address these issues. I also just want to say to Susanne, I think you are very brave. And I think it is important to call this out. I saw that you got a lot of backlash also from people saying that you shouldn't take up these issues because then women definitely don't want to be fishers. And I think they're totally wrong because, and research shows that also when experiencing racism or harassment, that what hurts is the harassment itself, but what hurts even more are when others are passive bystanders, the bystander effect, and that hurts even more. So we need to work on this and to get rid of the culture. And I work with culture, and you know, often we talk about preserving culture, but we also need to say, okay, this tradition, it's not a good tradition, and we want to stop this, and we want to be better as a society. And there I think, of course, we politicians, and especially we who are from the north and from the coast, who have this kind of standing in these environments, we have a responsibility to speak up. And I want to also commend the fisheries director in Norway, Frank Bakke-Jensen, who has also taken a very clear stand. And I think also that means something because he's also a man with powers in the fisheries. So that's important, of course. And then there's a lot of other things that we need to do in order to have policies that make it easier for women to be a part of the fishing industry. So, for example, the Sami Parliament, we give funding for first-time investments in fishing vessels for coastal fishers. And we don't have a lot of money. It's not big sums that we give. It's small sums, but that gives young fishers the opportunity to take up loans from the bank, because it's extremely expensive to get into the fisheries in Norway because of the prices of the boats and the quotas. But the last couple of years, we have had 50-50 women and men for this funding, and I'm extremely proud of that. So I think that we need to, you know, we have been working with equality in many other fields for many, many years, and we need to take those same kind of approaches and apply them also to the fisheries and to the blue economy. And then, of course, we have this, in Norwegian we call it ukultur, like bad culture, that we also really need to address, because I don't think that's a great place to work for any of us, like male or female, to be in that kind of hostile environment and call it dark humor or like a male-oriented culture. But I think we really need to tackle this.
I wanted to just follow up with a question, Sandra, because you are from the north, and a lot of people in the north, they have grandmothers who were named, I'm not sure if this is the correct term in English, but fisher farmers, fiskarbonden, which was the men were fishing and the women were taking care of the animals, the farm, and doing really hard work. And do you think that the role of women, which is so important in the Arctic, is forgotten and is not spoken enough about in history, it's not acknowledged enough, and that could be part of the problem.
I think we should lift that up more. I don't think it's forgotten, but it's something to be very proud of course. And I've heard women in my home village saying that, when the men went to the seasonal fishing often, they went to the Finnmarksfiske, Lopphavet, to Lofoten, and the women stayed behind. But then they were taking care of the house and, the sheep and the cows, and they were also rowing on the fjord to get fish for dinner. But then when the men came home after several months on the sea, they were like, oh, now we have to pretend that we can't manage on our own just to not hurt their ego. So women in the coast have definitely been, they have also been the ones economically responsible for their families and also have been the decision makers. So we definitely have this in the culture. But we also have had women who have been rowing on the seasonal fisheries and have been, fishing icons. And I think that's important. That's something we can look up to and also idolize and remember.
Yes, thank you. We focus a lot of women, but of course we have many important voices also from male researchers. And Edgar, you are a very experienced researcher, and you represent the Norwegian Institute of Food, Fisheries and Aquaculture, and you have a lot of insights in this. Please.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
We were asked by the government to make to gather statistics and do some thoughts that they should work on with their strategies on women, and so we delivered the report in 2021, I think, just before it exploded with Susanne. So what we found in the report is, to no surprise to you, you heard this before, that the Norwegian labor market is strongly divided by gender. 15% of the workforce in occupations are in occupations with between 40 and 60% of both sexes. Young people choose education according to gender, and women particularly choose the public sector, administration, and service profession as career choices. The proportion of female full-time and part-time fishers are constantly very low. In 2023, 5.2%, not more. That's what you already have presented. But we also found that there are no formal barriers that prevent women from becoming fishermen or fishing boat owners on an equal footing with men. This indicates, as you have spoken of, this indicates that there have been and are barriers to real equality. There are obvious reasons which individually and collectively lead to low participation, a male-dominated and sometimes rough culture, as described here, greater challenges for women than men, combining profession with responsibility for children and women's own career choices. The fishing profession is characterized by a hunting, harvesting culture and will always be that way. In the work of our report on gender equality in the fishing fleet, feedback from women was very different. Luckily, many said that they did not experience negative feedback because they were women. And they felt welcomed and valued. Others, like Susanna, spoke of gross gender discrimination. Later articles in the press indicate that serious harassment occur and affects young people and young women and LGBTQ people in particular. This is clearly a need. There is clearly a need for the problems to be better investigated and followed up. The Parliament and government have signaled that they want better conditions for women, and assume that harassment should be removed regardless of who it affects. The responsibility, my grandson is starting in the fishing boat, so I don't want him to have the same experience as you have had. The responsibility of doing this rests on ship owners and skippers in the fishing fleet. One should stop using culture as an excuse for very bad behavior and breaking the law. I look forward to the worst cases having to appear in court for breaching the Work Environment Act.
Thank you very much, Edgar. Do you think that this is a generation problem?
I hope I could say yes.
Yeah. Do you think your grandson will represent something new? He will, the young...
I hope. I will kick his ass.
Yeah. Yeah.
But my wife was a fisher, and she experienced exactly the same as Susanna.
It's very sad to hear. Well, we're hoping for a change. Gosia, I would like to bring you in again.
I get really angry.
Yeah. Gosia, so you are a researcher, and you have a lot of knowledge like Anna, and we present reports, and we basically know the problem, and we're going to hear in a minute the recommendations. As a researcher, and you live in Tromsø yourself, with a little daughter, right? And is it sometimes too far from the research to the action, like the colleagues that Susanna describes, or the captains on the boats? They don't read your reports. Are the researchers and the institutes focusing enough on bringing these findings in an understandable manner to those actually working on the boats and in the industry in general?
Thank you very much. And I guess my answer to this question is actually twofold. And one thing is that what was said, maybe thankfully we are seeing signs of things changing with generations. And I actually wanted to flag one thing here, which is Ocean Leadership Executive Program that we have now here at UiT, the Arctic University of Norway. By the way, I'm not involved with the program, but they open for applications on February 1st, just saying. But my point about the program is different one. It is actually before this panel, I was interested about the ratio of students and if they address questions of gender, of diversity, equity, and inclusion in the program. And I was very happy to hear that, yes, that actually the ratio of their students, and those are people all already with experience working in marine industry, the ratio of students is 50-50. They pay attention every time to teachers, to the composition of teaching panels, to make sure that they unsettle traditional leadership patterns to make sure women are included in those. And what is also important is that in their teaching models, they actually include, for instance, feminist theories or indigenous knowledge. So kind of the components that typically have been marginalized, but their hope is that actually bringing this as education to current and future leaders in the industry can generate this change over time. I think they are reading our reports, that's my hope. But it's only part of the question. Because actually I wanted to point out to another thing, and I'll try to make it brief and conclude here. But I think the other aspect is altogether, and that's my claim, I would be very happy if someone disagrees with that. But outside of discussions and extremely important events like this one, which have gender equality in the title, we don't hear about equality from main stages. So here, I mean, we are sitting at the Arctic frontiers and we are discussing developments across circumpolar Arctic. And like you said, Kirill, we have potential in the north, we have competence, we have people, and we'll be hearing plenty about offshore opportunities, about transformation, transition, green energy, you name it. And at the same time, I put my money, it won't be very often that we will hear from the main stages that these sectors as they are, they don't provide equal opportunities to everyone as we stand. They might if we address this, but we don't. And I think this issue, it's, I don't know if it's a question of reading the reports, but this gender blindness in general, when we are talking just about people in the north, I think that's actually our blind spot. And I think this is something that we need to address when we'll be also going to plenaries in the future of this topic.
That's a very good point. We're going to have to wrap up. Sandra, final remarks from you.
Well, I think we need to do a lot more. I think it's shocking that fisheries organizations can elect all male boards in 2023 and 2024. I thought we didn't allow that in Norway, but apparently I missed that. But also the other thing is that I think also skippers and captains, they really should pay attention to this bad culture, because what will their future recruitment possibilities be if the fisheries are viewed as a bad working space, or if their boat is known as a bad place to work? You know, we have a lack of workers in the north, and it's also about safety, I think. Like how on earth should you be captain of a vessel and then you have a conflict and harassment problems in your crew? That sounds very dangerous to me. So I think we need to do a lot more.
That's a good summing up. Very short from you, Edgar.
I think the question asked should be: can you be a captain if you can't manage the crew? So
that should be the first question in the job interviews. Thank you so much to this panel. Thank you. So now we're going to hear the policy recommendations from Anna, please.
Yes, thank you. And now to reaction. We have come up with several recommendations that we believe are important to put forward. And in the line of what this ended by, I think that we need to promote women's impact and make their valuable contribution to the sector more visible by appealing to the industry. So we would need to continue to increase the awareness of business leaders and policymakers as well, to expand their knowledge of the value women bring to the maritime sector and blue economy in general. And I want to stress industry here. So this also implies that we should educate business leaders and policymakers about equality. And when that is said, I think it's also important to get the full picture by broadening the scope to grasp all blue economy, not only the conventional fisheries, fish processing and aquaculture, but also all other fields of occupations that is surrounded by this. Because women are probably among the main drivers and entrepreneurs in the industry and in the broader blue economy. And by that, this kind of equality discussion and awareness could be improved. Okay, increase women's participation in Nordic fishing industry, and here we probably have to focus more on recruiting women as fishers and boat owners. and help them stay longer in these roles. We need to promote awareness of women's importance in the sector accordingly also here, and work to change attitudes about their capabilities. We also need to improve gender data, obviously, in Nordic Blue Economy, and there's need to mobilize resources on this. We need to improve data on gender representation in the Nordic Blue Economy, accounting for women's contribution. And I think this task may also have to involve multi-level governance institutions like FAO, ILO, cross Nordic institutions and organizations across sectors. And I know that IMO is also actually spurring up their gender equality focus. So some promising perspectives, or something promising on the horizon, I hope. We need to enhance women in education and the representation in especially, I think, in the vocational and secondary education programs. And I think their presentation can be boosted by specific actions, and we've actually already, and I forgot to say that earlier, we see seeds of change in this. We see from media and from oral sources that actually women are increasing in programs, maritime programs on vocational and secondary level. So what future holds there, we don't know, but hopefully an increased number of women here. But I think in general, in order for this to be realized, we need to promote good and diverse role models. And this is why we have in our report photos of numerous women in different positions, just because to have the faces shown, I think it has an impact. Okay, increase maritime industry's appeal by combating discrimination. This is very important. We have to make the maritime and shipping industry more attractive, more. We have to fight discrimination and sexual harassment and promote fair working conditions at sea. And then the more research on women leaders in maritime sector and fisheries is needed. This is especially regarding their access to financial power and policy influence. Lastly, I would want to promote and support the idea that we live in a sustainable Nordic region, but for that to be realized, we need also to encourage the Nordic cooperation, to promote, to continue promoting sustainability, which includes biodiversity and ocean governance. And our region should aim at securing gender equality with meaningful and informed participation and leadership. And by that, I thank you all. And want to draw your attention that the report is out and you can get it at the website of Nordic Council of Ministers or Nordregios. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anna. I would like to invite the next panel to join me on stage. Secretary General Karen Ellemann, Gunnar Davidsson from the Troms County Council, the Resource Management Department, and Jannicke Eckhoff from the Norwegian Seafood Association Policy Advisor. I would like I would like to start with you, Karen. You are a very strong woman. You know, you're previous foreign minister, and you are a woman in a high position. And we've heard some, strong statements from Susanna, and now we have the policy recommendations. And as a politician and working in the Nordic Council of Ministers, is it sometimes far away from the recommendations to actual action? Or are you optimistic that now we will have the right tools?
Well, seeing the results from the report, and let me start by thanking you and the whole team for actually making this report, and also to Norwegian leadership back in 21, where it was ordered and all of the colleagues by the Nordic ministers agreed. We need this because it really reveals that there's still huge lack of knowledge, lack of data, the statistics that we really need, and you said that very well. Politicians need statistics to actually know what's at stake. You said that very clearly, and thank you for doing that, because that's what's needed, because then it's facts at the table, really showing that there's so much room for improvement here. So yes, thank you for giving this nice introduction. I'm a former politician now, but I can assure you that the backpack I'm carrying, having served as minister in the Danish government for many years, gives me some kind of hope, but honestly also still a lot of frustration. I mean, listening to Susanne and listening what you've been put up with, and also listening to all the passiveness around you, and then when you finally speak up, all the attacks that you get from speaking up. That's terrible, and that's unacceptable, and that's why in the Nordic Council of Ministers, what we do is that we have for many years mainstreamed the gender question in all aspects. And that's something that you can debate, oh, is that really necessary? Don't we have equal opportunities in our countries? And as I said in my introduction, not yet. There's a long way to go. And we need this, as you also said, for making sure that we actually achieve this very good vision. Our prime ministers adopted that one in 2019. And what's really strong with that vision is that it's not just something they said back in 2019. They reconfirm it every single year. Even though we get new prime ministers in our countries, they reconfirm that this is what we want, this is what you need to work upon. So that's why in this organization that I'm heading now, the Nordic Council of Ministers, I'm extremely proud that we have this mainstreaming tool, because that really gives us, I mean, we have to do that every single time in every work that we do to reveal where we have the huge lacks and also the huge potentials. Because with these reports coming out here, and people are reading the reports, I can assure you, people are being, as I said, you know, they get knowledge that they cannot just ignore. And that's why we really need to keep on making sure we get the best available data, best available knowledge to get the debate going and to get these recommendations at the table. And I can assure you that ministers, and actually no matter what sector they are ministers for, well, everybody's there in the office making sure and working hard to make our countries well functioning. And hearing stories like that is nothing, I mean, you cannot accept it, and you need to put a lot of effort in making sure that we do have a progress. So yes, more data, and hopefully with all the new programs that we are developing all the time and all the new sector programs, I always hear that from ministers, and we love this when we get the maps with all of our Nordic countries. It's not like a football match, but it's a good competition. Wow, what did Greenland do? Wow, what happened in Finland? Why are they first place? Why aren't we? Yeah. So this is the kind of knowledge that gives a healthy competition. Yeah. It makes sense. Yeah. So that's my introduction.
Thank you very much. Gunnar Davidsen, you're a good Nordic. You are originally from Iceland, and now you live in Tromsø, Norway. And you're also a judo player. Yeah, I'm too. We know each other from the tatami. Yeah. I wanted to ask you for your general thoughts, but you live here in Tromsø in the Norwegian Arctic, and we focus a lot on recruiting new people because we need competence, we need people, we need young women to stay. And stories like this are not good publicity for us. What do you think we should do? And following the report and the recommendations, do you have concrete success stories? Do you know about? Can we learn from other sectors? Can we learn from sports? What do you think?
Well, I don't know if you can learn anything from old men like me, but then again, women have always been known to be smarter than men. But from my experience in the county council, we have a responsibility for the youngsters' educations, upper secondary, and we have been working on getting young people to apply for the works or the studies necessary to bring forward the blue economy of this region, because that we need that, both in the upper secondary school and for the fishermen studies actually, and also for the higher education. So we have put some considerable effect into getting more young people to apply for the natural resources studies, and we have had some success in that. And also more girls are applying for these studies. They were almost absent for not so many years ago, and their proportion is increasing steadily. Like in 3 years, there were only like 20% girls in the first year of upper secondary for the natural resources. That would be fishing and aquaculture together. And now we're up to 40%. So we're getting there that if the girls are interested in these things, they are going to get there. So the problem is, of course, when we get backlashes like this, Susanna is very heroic speaking out for this discrimination that she's been put through. And there are more. We know there are more. And we have tried to give the youngsters the opportunities, and we can't afford for the industries to kind of denounce that possibility and not accept women as equal of men. And we know they can do better jobs than men. We all know that. That's obvious. And we know that the women are also applying for or getting through university education towards the fisheries in higher rates than men are. So kind of the industries that want women, they will get them, and they will get the best qualified workforce. Those who don't welcome women, they will lose out, and the society will lose out, because we need all the hands on deck.
Is this knowledge well established in the boardrooms in the industry?
In the aquaculture industry, probably more so than in the fishing industry. So I'm sorry to say. I come from the fishing sector myself. But I know I work with the aquaculture industry, and I know there's a different attitude. And that worries me, because I know that if the industry wants to succeed, they need to change their attitudes. They need to leave the old culture. The ukultur has to go away. And of course, every push from the government or what the government is trying to do to kind of fix this situation is of course good, but I don't think they're doing enough that is needed.
Maybe we should start by changing the title. Even Susanna was forced to say that I'm a fisherman. Maybe we should call it fishing expert or technician. Yeah. Thank you very much. I would like to give the floor now to Jannik Eko from the Norwegian Seafood Association. You are very well placed to observe these tendencies, and we've heard about the negative sides, but I'm sure there are also success stories and good development also that we have to mention before we end today. Please, Jannik, share your views.
Yes, I definitely think that there are a lot of positive stories out there, and a lot of work, the work that I've been doing on various projects working for the Norwegian Seafood Federation has been on exactly that, identifying the good stories, looking at what positive trends and drives are actually out there, and trying to not only support and amplify, but also give these people and these positive things that are happening a stage to try to communicate it, because what has been mentioned a couple of times today is that it is so important to spread real knowledge and to tell the stories. And I want to thank Susanna so much for not just for your bravery, but for your continued work. One thing is writing something, sharing your story online. Another thing is to continue to show up to debates and stuff like this, and to be an active advocate for positive change. And that is great. And I think you have opened doors, and we're actually in this room here today because of what Susanna did, because it started a political movement, and it started politicians where they put money where their mouths were, and that is what is needed to create
So
change.
there will be a before and after Susanna.
I hope so. I definitely think so, and I've seen you speak at a couple of events, and I think the effect you have, it is significant, and I think we should be really thankful for what you're doing. But sharing the positive stories is also important to diversify the discussion and to really drill down on where the real problems are. And when I was preparing for this panel, and also, of course, reading the report, words and statements like gender equality and segregated work market came up, which are great terms to describe the situation that we're in our industry. But what Susanna is describing to me, I don't connect it with the term gender equality. This has to do with harassment. And it has been also mentioned here today that Susanna's experiences stirs an emotion of sadness. But I am not actually sad at all. I'm furious. This is not just something that is negative and we have to work towards. This is something that needs to be changed now. And I think also coming from the organization that I do, we represent the Norwegian Seafood Federation represent seafood industry, but it represents the processing industry and also aquaculture. So actually fisheries I'm not too familiar with. But I know a couple of people in the organizations who represent these industries, and they share the same stories, that there is a want to push for better change, and I hope that we can do this together, and especially this segment of the panel being focused on what actions can be taken instead of just responding, I think is great. And I want to also thank you for the report and the work that has been done, and for the opportunity to speak here.
Thank you. And as a woman, young woman, also being part of the industry, if I'm going to ask you to be a little bit personal, what would be important to you and your female friends and colleagues in recruiting? What words do you like to see, or what would you, if you were going to do a campaign, what would you focus on to attract more women?
Well, first of all, as coming from also having done a lot of communications project, I would definitely differentiate between the different sectors that have been studied in this report. So aquaculture differ a lot from fisheries, and I think I would focus on different things. But I think what is common for you were talking about, do you think that there is a generational difference here? And I don't think it's too much generational. I think it's more cultural. But the cultural lines tend to also follow the generational lines. So I would try to focus on what a lot of positions and places of work within the blue economy has to offer, and that is being out on the ocean, being out in the elements, and doing important and value-creating work. This is very, very valuable positions, and we're contributing a lot, not only to our local communities, but also to the nations financially. And I think it's, to be a young person and a young woman working within the blue economy is something to be proud of, because you're doing important work, and also you're driving for positive change. Talking a little bit about other things, we need more sustainable food systems, and we need our food systems to be more of our food to come from the ocean. And to work within the blue industry is something to be proud of.
Exactly. Thank you so much. We're gonna soon have to wrap up. Gunnar, some final thoughts from you moving forward, working in the Nordic Arctic, and also rightly mentioned by Jannicke, we focus a lot on the blue-green solutions and the role of the blue economy in the need to be sustainable in the Arctic. And I know that you focus on it in the Troms County a lot.
Well, sustainability is the key to people living up here.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not going to do anything here if it's
And
not
also
sustainable over
social
time.
sustainability, right?
Exactly. So we have a lot of things to be done, and one thing is the attitude of people, but also we have some regulatory things we need to fix to make it more adapted to kind of more modern people's life. I mean, today people don't want to be far away from their family for weeks and months on end. They want to be able to adjust their work environment to like real life, what is expected to today's society, and we need to work on that as well. So regulations and things like that need to be modified, I'm sure.
Yeah, good point. Thank you, Secretary General. You will now have the final remarks. We're gonna wrap up.
Well, thank you so much. And let me just highlight, well, I fully agree with everything said, and I think it's very important that we get it here from all perspectives, definitely the daily life. And what I would like to highlight is, first of all, as you were saying, the interlinkage between climate and gender equality issues. That's, and well, just a commercial break here, but you have it on your chairs, a very important report. And I would say that what we got here today, we will, of course, adapt that into this report. We launched this at the Climate COP in December in Dubai. Very well received because, I mean, making sure we have this Nordic knowledge hub for a green and gender equal Nordic region. That's, of course, extremely important. And then, again, turning back to Susanne and the general discussion about sexual harassment. What we've done within the Nordic Council of Ministers is that we, at a Nordic level, we have conducted now a whole research program on prevention of sexual harassment at work. So that's not only at work in the blue economy, but at work in general. That's very important because this is going to be recommendations on how to actually intervene. So what we are doing is that we have actually set down 5 research groups from all over the Nordics, and they are actually developing ways to tackle this problem in a more effectively way. And it's not quite ready, but then you have something to look forward to, because I think these are going to be very efficient tools to combat, in general, sexual harassment at work.
That's a very good final remark. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much, and thank you to our online viewers who have been following us today. Read the report, and please know good things are being done, but we have to keep up the good work to make things better in blue economy. Thank you so much.